morning. How is everybody doing? It's a week till Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. If not, I'm sure you get some sort of holidays soon, so it's very exciting. Um, this morning we are going to talk about your dog's emotions matter. It's a fun topic, and I'm hoping you'll get a whole lot of wow moments, aha moments to think about over this holiday season. As you can tell, I'm very excited. Vacation is always fun. Okay, so I am also super excited about our first Facebook Live coming back on January 8th. So Facebook has changed how everything happens. So I get to schedule stuff much earlier in advance, and I've scheduled it. So make sure to, and I'm putting it in the comments and I'm pinning it to the comments. Make sure you sign up that you're interested in this live so that you will get notifications that you can join us. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me on my Facebook Live this morning. If you don't know me, my name is Paula Hoger. I am the owner and head trainer at Shake-a-Paw Dog Training located in South Mountain, Ontario. South Mountain is about 40 minutes south of Ottawa. Throughout my life, I have been blessed with numerous breeds and have enjoyed every single one and all their little differences. I've had Akitas, Siberian Husky, a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, and now I have Border Collies. Having owned multiple breeds has given me a better understanding of how different breeds have different hardwiring. Dogs are all dogs. But you also have to keep in mind your breed hardwiring when you're thinking of getting a breed, knowing what the breed's about, knowing what it's more likely to act like. I had clients call me the other day, and one of the things they think is important is that their dogs stick around, but they've got a Siberian cross. That's going to be a challenge. So you want to think about that when you think about what your dog life is going to look like through the life of this dog. Understanding breed tendencies has given me the ability to predict possible problem behaviors that will come up, giving me valuable information to help my clients. For example, back to the Siberian. Most Siberian Huskies are going to have some serious prey drive. So getting them used to cats at a young age is going to be really helpful if you plan on like being able to deal with squirrels and cats and everything when you're out on leash. If you have like a neighbor's cat that hangs around, I totally use that cat and start training my dog when he's 8 weeks old how to be calm around a cat and not lose their mind every time they see a cat. So knowing things like that, calling my dog, my Siberian Husky, off a tree with a raccoon in it was a whole lot harder than calling my Chesapeake. It was like, yeah, I tried for a minute, I got bored, I walked away. So knowing these things makes life easier with dogs. Of course, always keep in mind, every dog, regardless of breed, is an individual and will have different drives and sensitivities, which will also affect training. And that's a little bit what we're going to talk about today. What breed? Tell me what breed you have, and do you know what the typical drives are for that dog? Were you aware of them when you bought the dog or got the dog? If you have a mixed breed, interesting enough, genetics is fascinating. The breed your dog looks like will probably be the breed your dog acts like. So the differences in behavior go with the differences: coat color, coat type, ears, prick ears, drop ears. It's fascinating to think about. All dogs came from a wolf type animal, and now we've created pugs. What did we breed to get that? There's this study done with silver foxes where they took the gentlest silver foxes and kept breeding them together. And within, like, I think it was like 10, 15 generations, they had drop ears instead of prick ears. So it's fascinating what temperament and what they look like are very closely related. As I go through this live, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I will answer throughout the live, so just ask away. If you are listening to the recording, let me know by using hashtag replay in the comment section. And please feel free to ask anything as you watch the playback, as I will regularly check back to answer questions. And just because I never know how much you guys hear right at the beginning, I've put the link to the event for my next Facebook Live on January 8th in the comments. So you guys can go to it and say you're going, and that way you'll get notifications. Okay, so today's topic is your dog's emotions matter. I'm just gonna fix this so I can see it better. There we go. While we wait for people to join me, I want to talk about something I've been thinking about this week and goes really well with this subject. As some of you know, I went to a Tony Robbins virtual event a few weeks ago. It was piles of fun, very exciting, life-changing, and if you've never experienced one, I highly recommend you try it. There was a lot of talk during the seminar about being in the correct state for what you were doing. This, of course, led me back to dog training. During the seminar, these seminars were crazy long hours. So 14-hour days, you got really tired, you were sitting at a desk, so you weren't even in a building with all this energy. And they made us get up and dance with this really high-end music, pump, pump, pump. And it was amazing. You were starting to get droopy. You really didn't care what they were saying. And they'd make you get up and dance. And you were like, oh, I'm ready to learn. I'm ready to think. And this so affects our dogs, right? Sometimes we pull them out of their crate and they're kind of poopy because they're sleeping, because they're tired, whatever. And if you run around the building for a few minutes, then they're like, oh, ready to play. Excuse me. And that's what we're talking about today, triggers and states. I have a client with a bull terrier. I haven't worked with a pile of bull terriers, but let me tell you, this bull terrier makes agility. It's been an interesting challenge to train this dog to do agility. And now he's got all the skills, but it's getting that drive. And he has it. We've managed to pull it out. Now it's putting it, the ability to pull out that drive in something we can use. So for him, if you ask him to sit and put his toy in front of it and kind of wiggle it on the ground and say, ready, and get it, he's like, oh, that was very exciting. And then he'll run fast with drive. But if you let him come out of the crate and try to drive, he's like, oh my God. And then he gets to the jump and kind of looks at the bar. You don't want that associated with agility. Agility is about drive and speed, right? If every time he gets to do the course, he's in that excited state, eventually he will only do the course in that excited state. And that's what drive, this is what we're talking about today. What is the correct state? That's the first question. It depends what you're working on. If I'm working on handling a dog, I want the dog to be calm in a relaxed state. I remember someone a few years ago said after she finished a massage, she had a word in her brain that she said over and over. Because I don't know, my massages are hard and they hurt, so I'm not always relaxed. I'm usually in pain. But if you have a relaxing massage and you're totally relaxed and you put a trigger word in your brain, you can then pull out that trigger word when you need it and put yourself into that state because it's paired. This is kind of a thing we're talking about. So if I'm working on agility or recalls, I want my dog cranked up and excited. But if I'm working on handling, I want him relaxed. So there's no such thing as the wrong state. Well, there is, but we'll get into that. But it's more your ability to manipulate the state is what we're talking about. So here's something else to think about. What state is your dog usually in? What is the natural state of your dog? There are dogs who are laid back and hang out, and then there are dogs who are cranked up all the time. You don't want to take that dog that's cranked up and get him more excited. That will get you snapped at usually. A dog that is too excited can't think, can't function. That's not the goal. The goal is to get them in the optimal state for this, whatever you're working on. At the same time, if you have a very laid back dog and you want to build a fast recall, you start with building excitement and energy and then call them. That energy will transfer to the recall like it did to agility with the bull terrier. If you do this every time, you eventually, your recall cue, for example, come, will put your dog into that excited, energetic state. In this case, the recall cue come becomes the trigger. To learn how to use the triggers to manipulate your dog's state, you have to really learn to watch your dog and see what already triggers your dog. Okay, let's check out the comments before I go back to that. Good morning, Tracy. Yes, you do. So Tracy says, I have many Australian Shepherds, herders, and we see those traits during play. Herding dogs don't ever run straight lines. They flank. So we have to really work on that in agility because agility is straight lines. they don't flank. So some of the herding dogs will, as you're running near them between obstacles, they come out and will miss an obstacle because they're not running in that straight line. So that's something we always have to deal with herding dogs. Joanne, King Shepherd, Rottie, Rhodesian, Boxer mix. That's a lot of animals in there. Rhodesians are hilarious. Rhodesians are high-end puppies, and then the most laid-back adult dogs I've ever met. Boxers are never laid back. So yeah, it depends. So Joanne, tell us, who does your dog look like? Does he look like a shepherd? Does he look like a Rottie? Does he look like a Ridgie, a boxer? I'm curious. Okay, so talking about triggers and states. So I want you to think about this and be careful here. You want to watch, when you watch your dog, when you observe your dog, you want to watch them unemotionally. Because this is where your state will change and change your perception. So, for example, I am working on Wicca's retrieving. She can bring most things to hand. So I want her to go out, pick up her toy, bring it back, and put it in my hand. Once we've done toys, which are relatively easy to work through because they're easy to pick up, I'll start working on stuff like socks. And then you can work on fun stuff like pens and paper clips, stuff that's harder to grab. So she needs more understanding and drive before I go to those challenging things. So she's bringing back most things to hand now, except her fuzzy toys, like her fur toys, anything fuzzy. For those, she sits and chews. And actually this morning we did a stuffy, and it took her a few minutes to be like, I don't get to chew this? What do you mean? I don't understand. So my mind and my state instantly went to, well, this isn't going to work. She loves to chew those toys. This isn't going to work. As soon as my mind went there, I lost the ability to figure out a solution because I told my mind there wasn't a solution. So what was the point of looking for one? I am learning to overcome this. I have worked very hard on overcoming this, and I work hard on all my clients learning to overcome this. I put her away for a few minutes. I took a deep breath and I asked the question, what can I do to help her understand what I want? That was such a better state for my mind to be in. As soon as you tell your mind, I can't do this, well, guess what? Your mind will confirm you can't do this. But if you open your mind to how can I do this, then your mind will open up and look for solutions. So the solutions I came up with: ask her to sit and focus before releasing. This will get Wicca to be more calm and thoughtful. Very short retrieves, not letting her get excited as she runs out, and then forgetting halfway back that she's coming back instead of lying down and chewing it. Reward any pickup and turn towards me and not waiting till she puts it in my hand. A few weeks ago, I talked about splitting behaviors instead of lumping, means rewarding little pieces of behavior instead of waiting for the final product. This is a great example of splitting a behavior. As soon as she picked it up, if she chose to turn towards me, she got rewarded. If she chose to turn away from me, she was close enough. I just took the toy away and prevented her from earning reinforcement from chewing the toy. With all these changes, I quickly had her bringing the fuzzy toy to hand. Remember, your state of mind when you're training is just as important as your dog's state of mind. Joanne, Bear looks like a fluffy shepherd with floppy ears. Ah, post a picture. That sounds adorable. Yeah, and shepherds are pretty laid back, especially the bigger ones, so that would make sense. Back to your dog's state. Even the most laid back dogs get excited sometimes, and even the most excited dogs get calm sometimes. This is what the information you can use to start to add triggers to create the state you want. Is your dog more the calm type or the excited type? So, like I said, today I'm going to talk about triggers and states of mind, working on your dog's emotions and how you can control them. I'm going to start by defining these two terms. In mental health terms, a trigger refers to something that affects an emotional state. This leads us to the other term, state. This is a little harder to define because it's a very conceptual concept. Let me start by making sure we're on the same page as each other by first defining what I mean by the word state. Excuse me. State is how the dog feels, but I hate to say that because I don't want to, and I don't want you to think I am anthropomorphizing. Sorry, that word. too long. That is like a black hole you don't want to go down, because the problem is we're like, oh, the puppy's sad and we have to make him feel better. And that ends up usually reinforcing that sad like behavior. I remember my very first dog, my Akita. If he lied down, Akitas love to put their chins on the floor between their front paws. Um, he at first I was like, oh, he looks sad and I need to make him feel better. But no, that was just him relaxing. But if I anthropomorphize, I'm constantly putting emotions on my dog, and you have to be so careful about doing that. So I don't want you to feel bad about your dog state. I just want this information to give you power, the ability to change your dog state. Your dogs will have many states: excited, sleepy, poopy, worried. Poopy, I mean kind of depressed looking, not poopy as in they've pooped themselves. Worried, anxious. How you can use this information is what I want to work on. Let's start with an example. You know how sometimes your dog plays keep away and sometimes they don't? You'll be in the exact same, like, let's say you're on a walk and sometimes they'll pick something up and run away and sometimes they don't. We will call this the keep away state. Truly, there is probably a level of anxiety in a keep away state. Your dog getting into this state will also trigger a state in you. There's nothing that makes my head explode more than a dog who plays keep away. So that's my trigger. Picture it, you're at the park, your dog is running around off leash, you've had a lovely walk, it's time to go home and you need to call your dog. But you are never sure if your dog's going to come or if your dog is going to play keep away. This now triggers a change of state in you, an anxious state. And I've so been there. And as you reach the point where you're going to have to put your dog on leash, you feel it in your gut, you start to feel a little stressed. You take a deep breath and think positive thoughts. You call your dog, he turns and he looks at you, and you pray he's going to make the right choice and come. And sometimes he does, and sometimes he doesn't. If you step towards your dog, you know you're screwed. The game's on. He will fall into his keep away state. So what do? How does knowing your dog is going to do this help you teach your dog to come? This is when triggers come into play, because triggers are what controls the state of your dog. The more control and awareness you have of triggers, the better dog trainer you become. In this case, you calling your dog at the exit to the park is the trigger. One of my dogs had a similar issue. For him, he knew I was going to put his halty on, and that was his trigger. And I had not yet built enough value for the halty. So for him, the halty wasn't a woohoo thing. It was a ooh. If you're new to our environment, we use a 3-step problem-solving formula that helps us build the framework to solve virtually any dog training problem you will encounter. So this is how we call the 3-step formula PAP, short for prevent, alternative, practice. So this is how I took care of Speck and his running away at the end of the walk. Prevent. I didn't call him to put his halty on. I never called him to put his halty on. When I needed it to put his halty on, I had management in place to prevent Speck from practicing running away at the sight of the halty. Always, every time, because every time you practice, I'm going to call you and pick up your halty. He's going to practice. Oh, the halty means go the other way. Alternative. I created a different behavior that did not require me calling him. I spend a lot of time working on my dog's recalls. Super important. One of those foundation exercises. You can't have a well-behaved dog without having a dog that comes when called. But recalls are hard because we demand them. Without meaning to, we put pressure on the dogs. For some dogs, especially during adolescence, it is so easy to destroy a recall because of the choice you make when they choose not to come. And what I mean by that is some dogs, you need a distance sit to do this. But if you say come or whatever your recall cue is, the dog will take off or not come. But if you say sit, they have no problem sitting. So that's what I mean. Recalls have all sorts of crap attached to them. So you've got to be careful with those. Yes, this was for sure a recall issue with Speck, but in this situation, I went about it in a roundabout way. I found recalls, once they're not working, you can't just keep driving that. You have to find other ways around it, like the sit. I continued to work on my recall, but not in this situation where he was off leash and I had no management in place. Instead, I created stations, places he could get up on. I have agility dogs. I encourage them to get on anything and everything from the time they are 8 weeks old. So getting on stuff is a heavily reinforced behavior for my dogs. I always managed to find something that Speck could get up on. a picnic table, a big rock, a bench at the end of every walk. Um, on the ground, if I brought out the Halti, the minute he saw it, he would move away from me. I never want anything that causes a dog to move away from me. But on his stations, he was perfectly fine of standing there and letting me put his Halti on. Why that worked, I don't know, but it worked, so I worked with it. When we would get towards the end of the walk, I would tell him to huff it up, and he would every time, and then I could put his Halti on. So that was my alternative that worked really well. He did outgrow all these behaviors, but that allowed me through that year of adolescence where he's all squirrely, they're all kind of squirrely, to not create the habit of running away every time he saw the Halti. So the practice, I continue to work on the Halti with his meals every day, building more value for putting it on. I practice getting up on stuff all the time, not just at the end of the walk and not just to put his Halti on. And I continued to work on my recalls where I was able to manage and not allow him to practice not coming. Spec actually had a spectacular recall, except when I was holding a Halti. Back to the dog who plays keep away. Keep away is another example of triggers and states. I want the trigger of me approaching my dog to put my dog in a state that causes him to move towards me. How do you build that trigger? This is where training and building value comes in. I start with the collar grab game. I want the trigger of me reaching for my dog to build a dog that confidently comes towards me. I start with grabbing the dog's collar, and then I reward without putting pressure on the collar. I reward in such a way that the dog has to move towards me to get the food. So I grab the dog's collar and then I put the cookie between my knees so he has to move towards me to get the food. Eventually, when you reach for your dog will anticipate the reward and move towards you, preventing all keep away situations. Most people, when they teach collar grab, they grab the collar and then move towards the dog when they reward, causing the dog to back up to get the reward, because dogs tend, and I'll talk about in a minute why, dogs tend to move away from us when we grab their collar. Putting reward placement closer to you creates the different behavior. The trigger cue to move towards me will be me reaching for my dog. My dog's state will be confident, comfortable, because he knows what he's supposed to do, and he gets rewarded even if it's just me going, good boy. Let's look at it from the other side. You need to grab your dog's collar. You approach, you grab the collar, and then you pull your dog towards you or towards whatever you need him to do. This could be going in a crate, going out a doorway, getting out of the way, whatever. When you pull on your dog's collar, you will initiate opposition reflex. Opposition reflex is a normal behavior that most dogs have. Basically, if you pull one way, they will instinctively pull the other, which means when you grab the collar and put pressure in one direction, they will put pressure in the other. So when you grab and pull, they will back away because of the opposition reflex. And this is most puppies, but there's no emotion attached yet. So now the trigger is you reaching for your dog, but then here's the problem. The response becomes the opposite of what you want. The response becomes to back away because your dog anticipates the pull on the collar and backs away. At the beginning, your dog's state is still fine. He may be backing away, but he's not worried or confused. But what happens when you try to grab your dog and you can't? You get annoyed. Now your state has changed. This, for me, the keep away makes me crazy. I've had dogs that do this, so I have to be super careful that my dogs don't do it because it's really hard to control myself. As soon as I see them back away, I'm like, right away I can feel it, and I have to really tone it down because with Wicca, her collar grab is great. If I reach for her and she backs away, which she does once in a while, I just stand there for a second, then she's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to come towards you. And it's all good and I reward. But if I kept following her, I'd be reinforcing that behavior, and especially because I'm not in the right state. So you get annoyed, now your state has changed, especially when you're in a rush, now you have to chase your dog. The more you try to catch your dog, the more annoyed you will become and the more worried your dog will be. Now you have a change of state. Remember, your dog is doing what he's trained to do. When you reach for him, he backs away. This is what you've practiced. but now you're annoyed and putting all sorts of social pressure on the dog. And by social pressure, you're leaning in, you don't look happy, you've lost your cherub demeanor. And so you're putting all sorts of pressure, social pressure on the dog as you keep trying to grab him, which causes him to move away more and more. In this situation, both you and your dog's state have become, we'll call it not optimal, triggered by you having to reach for your dog. And of course, like with any behavior, because of anticipation, the trigger grows. So let's say it's you putting your dog in a crate in the morning. You've practiced a couple of times trying to grab him to put him in a crate, and now it becomes a thing. So then the trigger becomes you finish your coffee in the morning. Your dog knows you have that last sip, and dogs are so paying attention. And he knows you put your cup down, you get up, you go grab him, you go put him in a crate. So now as you're drinking your coffee, your dog starts to go hide, slinks away. At the same time, you're finishing your coffee going, damn, I have to go catch my dog. I hate doing this. Because let's face it, we want our dogs to be happy and content. I hate putting him in a crate. My dog hates the crate. But what if he doesn't hate the crate and it's all just a problem of states? I've worked with numerous clients with the above problem. Let's go back to our problem-solving formula. PAP, prevent alternative practice. Prevent, need to change your morning routine so your dog never gets to practice not going in the crate. With most dogs, they don't hate the crate. They hate the going into the crate. They hate the whole scenario that happens because of the incorrect use of triggers and states. The trigger becomes the sight of the crate or the sight of you about to put him in the crate. The sight of the crate predicts keep away, which predicts the chasing and the annoyed owner, which changes the dog's state. So the first step is you have to change your morning routine so you don't fall into that trap. So the next stage of PAP, our problem-solving formula. Alternative. With management, you eliminate all these problems. One option would be to put your dog on a leash as he comes in from his last pee. Almost everybody lets their dogs out for a pee before they put them away. So as he comes in, you can either have him on leash when he goes out to pee, or literally as he comes in the door, you grab him by the collar, give him a cookie, put on his leash. This prevents keep away. Now, the next part is assuming your dog does not have separation anxiety and is fine once he's in the crate. The problem is going in the crate. Before you approach the crate, you put your dog in your hand in your dog's collar and have rewards ready in the other hand. As you approach the crate, you put pressure forward on the dog's collar and push your dog into the crate. The pressure, the reward will be, yes, you will experience opposition reflex, but the reward will come off. The reward will be the pressure will come off as soon as he steps into the crate. And you're going to reward towards the back of the crate. So if it's a wire crate, I drop the cookies from the top. If it's a plastic crate, I throw the cookies into the back. Here's the thing, and I've said this before, you do not reward until your dog's nose crosses the entry of the crate. So the cookies go in after the dog, not before the dog. So then you practice going into the crate multiple times every meal. I always feed inexperienced dogs or young dogs. I feed them in the crates, so right away it's easy to practice. I use handfuls of their dinner as a reward and feed them in the crate. With puppies, every time I put them away, I usually do 3-4 reps of come out, go back in, come out, go back in, come out, go back in. So they're like, oh, going in is so much fun. I've done this with many, many clients and all my own puppies. Within a week, you have a dog that is going into the crate without your hands still in the collar. With your hand still in the collar, sorry, but no argument. He's like, oh, I go in the crate. This takes away questions. I don't want to give him the opportunity to question going in the crate quickly. So I will keep my hand in the collar till the dog is pulling forward. So when I approach the crate, you will feel the dog pulling away from you into the crate. Usually within a month, I don't need to hold the collar anymore. Here's another concept that uses states and triggers. You always want to set yourself up for success. This builds the best state for every time you train. Start an exercise super simple. Human nature is to push, and we start stuff hard, and then we say, see, I knew my dog couldn't do it. That's our state. That's our triggers. Be careful. If you start super simple, have something to reward that puts you in a much better state and your dog. So start the exercise super simple. Get some rewards in before you ask for the challenging stuff. Here's an example. Let's say I'm working on sits with distraction, and the distraction is people walking by. A great start to this exercise is to move further away from the distraction and work on sits. I'm assuming if you're working on sits with distraction, your dog is already good at sit. You're comfortable with, you say sit, reward, 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 break, you move. This is going to be easy. So now your dog does a bunch of easy sits that you can reward. You and your dog now have success to build from and are ready for a challenge. And for your dog, his little filing cabinet has sit right at the front. So the odds of him listening once there's a distraction became higher because he's like, oh yeah, I just got cookies for that. If you instead chose to start closer, and what's too close for your dog? That depends on your dog, right? How do I know I'm too close? Ask my dog for a sit, and your dog goes, no, sorry, I can't. I have to watch the people. So you ask it again, you ask it again. And now what starts to happen is you're putting social pressure, you're leaning in, going, sit, and your voice gets harsher. You're too close. So if I ask my dog something, and once, possibly twice, and he still can't do it, odds are I'm going to make it easier so we can have success, so I can reward. So building that success history and then come closer and try again. So what happens if you don't do that? What if you go into the state of, my dog should know this? And I've so been there, but you know this, why aren't you doing this? So we're going to do the same thing over and over. This is our extinction burst because it's worked. You've sat before, so you must know this, but maybe in that situation or with young dogs in that mental state, because young dogs some days can, some days can't. It's just the way it is. Your dog will tell you he can't, and your dog's telling you he can't by not doing it. And he's not being bad. He's just not capable of doing it. If you have something he wants and your dog's not doing what you want, that is telling you he can't do it. So again, picture it. You ask your dog for a sit. Your dog barely even looks at you because he is so distracted by the people. You ask again. Again, your dog ignores you. Now you start to add social pressure and your verbal cues becomes more of a correction instead of a cue. Quickly, both you and your dog become frustrated and annoyed, not the state you ever want to be training in. Even worse, you will create triggers. Like when you ask your dog for a sit, your dog will go into that state of, she's saying that word. I see this with people too. So the lack of success now triggers a state in them when they have to ask for a sit. I'll tell a client, can you please put your dog in a sit? And they instantly lean into their dog, putting social pressure on them. And their cue is harsh, like a correction, not a cue. A cue should stand out from normal language, but it shouldn't be a correction. You shouldn't be mad when you say it. They get this mad look on their face. They have no faith their dog will listen. So they go into a very uptight, you must do this, defensive because they're putting pressure on the dog. Do you realize how detrimental to future training this can be? And I'm curious sometimes, I believe when people don't, or dogs don't do something, there's a reason. It's not just like people say, I didn't train. And it's not because they're lazy. Partly people are busy and haven't figured out a way to stick it in their schedule. That's one thing. But the other thing is, if training is not rewarding for you, meaning you're having fun and it's enjoyable, you're not going to do it. So this whole setup of starting easy will make it rewarding for you because we want to be correct. We want to be doing a good job just as much as the dog. So can you think of things that trigger you and your dog to go into this frustrated state? Maybe it's, for me lately, it's eating poop on our off-leash walks. So every day I'm coming up with new plans to make this better. Today, I don't think we ate any poop, so it was a good day. I hope after this live, you can now understand some of your dog's triggers and see how they are putting him into a state and you. And of course, also understand how these triggers are affecting your state. Can you figure out how to change your dog's state to one that would work better for you? If you need help finding a solution, message me. I do both remote and local consults. Thank you very much for listening to me this morning. I've enjoyed having you here. So on Sunday, December 27th, I'm not doing a live till January 8th, but on Sunday, December 27th at 10 a.m., I am going to do a live question and answer. I will put the link in the comments right now. And you can ask questions live that day or leave them in the comments and under the event, and I will answer them during the live. Also, don't forget about our special Facebook Live, How to Make Dog Training Work for You, on January 8th, 2021, after the new year. I wish everyone happy holidays and a happy new year. And I will see you all in 2021. Have a great time. Happy training. Thank you very much. Bye, guys.